Citizens Association board, who are all here in full force helping make sure that this runs smoothly. So we have Tom DiChiara, who is our vice president. Tom is also going to be our WebEx host for the evening. So he's really in charge of helping make sure that everyone's muted when they're not speaking, and helping things run smoothly from that aspect. We have Therese Keating, who is our treasurer and is the keeper and reader of all questions. So we'll get in a second, we'll talk about how we're going to handle questions. It's a little bit different than an in-person forum, just to make sure that we're sort of maximizing our audio capabilities and we don't talk over each other. So Therese will be our coordinator of questions. We've also got Steve Welker, who has joined us as well. He is our secretary, and Steve is our behind the scenes tech support, if you will. He's our web guru. So if at any point you have questions about how WebEx works, please feel free to shoot Steven an email and he will do his best to assist you. With that, I will introduce our candidates today. So we have 4 candidates that are going to be providing their opening remarks and answering questions. We have 1 candidate for the mayor position, that is Kaki Chantry. We have 3 candidates for the town council position. There are 2 open town council positions. So we have Jerry Lee Bennett, Andrew Fiddler, and Mario Grande. So thank you to our candidates as well for participating in this forum, this unique remote forum. So now I'll give a few opening remarks, some that are specific to this remote forum and others that I would just give an in-person forum as well. So I'm actually going to share my screen here. It might help a little bit to guide this part of the discussion, which is, let's see here. For a second. Again, Tom, I'm going to ask you if you could just unmute yourself to let me know if you can see the screen okay.
Yes. Yep. Can see it. You're welcome.
Here are our tips. I sent these out ahead of time, but this is really, we did a couple of trial runs, and I think these are some tips that we've learned are going to help things move quite as smoothly as possible. So the first is, please, there are different ways you can connect via audio to this remote conference, but please only connect one way. So what I mean by that is either your email, or sorry, either your computer through the WebEx browser or through the app, or through your phone, because if not, what we get is this endless terrible feedback loop and it sounds awful. So that's one tip. The second tip is that everyone should stay muted unless they're the designated speaker. So I'll be the moderator for this evening, so I will let you know like who is on deck to speak, but otherwise everyone should stay muted. Tom, again, is going to be our host in that regard and is going to try to keep everyone muted to the extent possible. But if you, for some reason, find yourself unmuted while you're not speaking, please make sure that you are. You know if you're muted because right by your name, there's a little symbol of a microphone. And if it's red and X'd out, kind of there's a cross over it, that means you're muted. So that's just another tip. One of our tips was to refrain from using the webcam to help with bandwidth, but it sort of seems like we're sort of adjusting here. It seems like quite a few people have joined with webcam, and it seems like we're doing okay for now. You know, use that if we start to run into some sputtering audio or some challenging bandwidth issues, maybe turn off your webcam, but I think for now we're okay. So the question and answer period, once we are first going to start with the candidates opening remarks, statements, and then after that, as is usual for the forum, we'll transition into the question and answer period. So there will be 3 ways that we're going to offer people to be able to ask their questions. And again, this is solely to try to help with the remote traffic, so no one's talking over each other and we can kind of all experience this the best way possible from an audio point of view. So the preferred method is using the chat function. So you should see on the WebEx, if you've used WebEx before, or if this is your first time, you should see that there is a little bubble that almost looks like a text bubble. And if you click on that, at the very bottom right-hand corner will pop up a chat function. You can then, there's a drop-down menu where you can choose who you're chatting to. So the specific person that you need to send your question to is Therese Keating. Again, she's our treasurer, and she's going to be keeping track of all the questions that come in. And when we get to our question and answer portion, she'll read them in the order that they come in. So feel free to chat her at any point during the forum. So that is one method and the preferred method. You can also email Therese. This is her email address, theresekeating@aol.com. And we also gave that option prior to the forum for people to provide their comments and questions, or to provide their questions. And then the third option is at designated points of the forum, so probably 2 or 3 times, we'll open up all of the phone lines for people to ask a question. This is primarily for folks who are calling in and don't have the option to email or send in their response. But again, just to minimize the opportunity for people to sort of talk over each other, we're hoping that people can use the chat function as much as possible. And unless otherwise requested, we will also say your name along with the question. And then again, as I mentioned, if you have questions during this, I know this is new territory for all of us. So if you have questions, please feel free to email Steve, our secretary, stevencwelker@gmail.com, and he can walk you through or provide assistance as needed. So that's that for the remote piece of the conversation, or remote ground rules, if you will. I do have a couple of other kickoff statements that I would normally say even in in-person forum. So my goal in moderating this is to ensure we cover as many topics as possible and that each candidate has a fair and equal opportunity to speak. This meeting is first and foremost a forum for the candidates to express their views on topics that are important to the town. It's not the appropriate venue to extensively debate a particular topic. This goes for both audience members and candidates. I encourage all audience members to present their questions succinctly, and then I'll give each candidate an opportunity to offer a response. Responses should be kept to 2 minutes. And questions should be addressed to all candidates. I'll rotate who answers first. I will allow limited responses to comments or criticisms, but in the end, I will endeavor to keep the conversation moving along. It goes without saying, I think that everyone knows it's best in everyone's best interest to keep things civil. And if anyone lets their enthusiasm get the better of them, I'll gently remind them. So those are just the typical ground rules I always provide, but I think that hopefully this will all run smoothly in this new virtual environment. So with that, let's do one quick I'll ask Tom if you can hear me okay before we move over to the candidates, and I'll also ask Therese if you've gotten any questions in terms of how this is going to work. Tom, can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, you're great. Loud and clear.
Everybody give me on webcam, give me a thumbs up, or everyone's good? Everyone's good to go? All right, good. Thanks, Allison. Okay, so then I will turn it over to Kaki to provide her opening remarks. Kaki, you might be muted.
All right.
Okay, oh, sorry. Now I can hear you. Sorry.
Am I unmuted? Okay. All right, good. Well, thank you. I'm Kaki. I'm running for mayor of this great town. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Regardless of how you vote, participation is critical to a representative government. So thank you for participating in this online event. Also, I want to thank Alicia and the Citizens Association for coordinating and moderating this forum. Your volunteer time helps to keep us all connected. So thank you. I also would like to extend a thank you to the candidates running for council. It's good for the community when residents volunteer their time in service to the town. We gain new energy and ideas from their involvement. So I wish you all the best of luck. In preparing these opening remarks, I've been reflecting on the obvious question, why do I want to run again? It's been a question I thought a lot about. I feel fortunate to live in such a beautiful town with vibrant gardens and great people. And I thank God every day for the beauty around us. I want to ensure that we keep this town as lovely in the future as it is now. And I want to keep our community united, even when we may not always agree. It's important to remember that we stay focused on what's best for the town and our community as a whole, and that we seek consensus and compromise when faced with opposing positions and divergent opinions. We are living in unprecedented times. The COVID-19 pandemic has altered our lives in ways we are still learning. It's reshaping our individual and social perspectives and testing our individual and community spirit. But I'm heartened by what I have seen around me and the willingness of our community to come together to support one another. I want to see this unity continue, to have our children see the place they live as a caring and generous community, one that teaches consensus, compromise, tolerance, and compassion. These are my personal reasons for wanting to serve another 2 years as your mayor, but I also want to see some things get done for the town at large. I'm looking forward to finishing the SRTS sidewalk project. It's demanded a vast majority of my time, and I'm eager to turn attention to other important projects. For example, we are very close to finalizing an engineering solution to mitigate the stormwater erosion problems at the end of Rokeby. This is a stormwater management issue that has been neglected for a long time. Neighbors are losing property and their homes are getting flooded. I would like the council to approve the plan chosen by our ad hoc Stormwater Advisory Committee in concert with residents. This is presently being fine-tuned by our town engineer. I'm eager to get our parking enforcement efforts underway. We have hired a part-time officer, but due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've not been able to bring him on board. I'd like to continue to build efficiencies and improve operational processes in the town office with our town manager and staff. The responsibilities around town are growing, and more services are being asked of town staff. At the same time, we are outgrowing our office space. As we anticipate revenue losses due to the pandemic stay-at-home order, we'll need to prioritize and be more resourceful. For instance, I'd like us to make better use of the Penn Place parking lot that serves the Black Market Bistro staff and customers, as well as the MARC train commuters on weekdays and the farmers market on Saturdays. We need to improve the traffic flow through this parking lot and at the same time create a safer environment for non-vehicular traffic. This has been studied multiple times over many years. It would be great finally to do something about it, and I look forward to working with the council and residents to get it done. I also would like to make the long-needed repairs to the beat-up old asphalt sidewalks on Waverly and on Oxford. These are in poor condition and have been a tripping hazard for years. I hope the council will help me in getting these done. Although I must admit, I also hope we can get someone else to manage the construction. The SRTS sidewalk has shown me how much time is needed to properly oversee such a project. For those of you who don't know me, I'm from a family of 10 children, raised in upstate New York. Learning to compromise and support one another was a big part of my upbringing. I served 4 years in the U.S. Army before entering civil service. Most of my federal career was spent managing large organizations and budgets, some in the billions. My background in science and statistics, as well as my fondness for writing, served me very well, and I gained a reputation as a troubleshooter and a forward thinker. After reaching the ranks of the senior executive service, I finally retired. My husband Dennis and I moved to Garrett Park in 1998 with our son Tamaro and daughter Kaylee. Our kids went to school at the Garrett Park Elementary School and Holy Cross. We love living here and have made great friends that I hope will last a lifetime. After all, it's a beautiful town with great people. I hope you'll vote for me as your mayor so that we can continue to build on the beauty of our town and the wonderful community that we are. I've provided my cell phone and my email address, and I think that's posted online as well. So that is it, and I promise that my other responses will be half as short as this. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Kaki. Now I would like to turn it over to Jerry Lee. One quick note to the candidates. Since we're endeavoring to keep things under 5 minutes, I'll just send you a quick private message when you are about a minute out, just so you know, and then I'll send another one when you're about 15 seconds out.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you, Jerry Lee. Yep, thank you.
All right. Well, happy Earth Day, everyone. I would also like to thank the Citizens Association for hosting this forum and demonstrating your flexibility to figure out how to conduct a virtual forum on short notice so that we could all still be here together. My husband Art and I have lived on Keswick Street here in Garrett Park for over 20 years. It's been a perfect place for us to raise our kids, and we've loved being able to walk them to the nursery school and the elementary school and have a safe and easy walk to the middle school and high school bus stop. My top priority as a council member is transparency, open communication, and collaboration between the council, the mayor, town staff, the committees, and residents. I bring a lot of experience, both professionally and as a volunteer, bringing groups together to work through issues, to find shared goals and common ground. And I think this is a unique skill set that I can bring as a council member to help us get the outcomes that we want as a town. The issues I'm most interested in and that I've worked on influencing thus far, the pesticide code. Garrett Park has not been opted into the county's pesticide codes, and the new codes took effect last year in the county at large, but not here in Garrett Park. So this week, I introduced an ordinance that, if voted on next month, will take effect in Garrett Park, and then we will have a consistent pesticide code for in Garrett Park that applies to the rest of the county. And it will reduce the amount of synthetic chemicals that are used on our lawns and in green spaces, which will improve the runoff that goes into the Chesapeake Bay watershed, but also protect our own arboretum trees. Also, I've been sponsoring a compost survey, which should go out very soon once we finalize it amongst the council. A resident brought to our attention that there was interest to have the town potentially sponsor or subsidize more compost pickup in the town. And while I'm interested in this topic, I'd like to know more about whether residents are interested in this additional service. So I'm sponsoring the work of the survey. I appreciate Joanne Schmader's work to put the initial survey together, and we'll run that survey and then look at the results and come up with some options for what we might be able to do to potentially expand compost service here in Garrett Park. I'm a member of the Arboretum Committee now as a council member, and I've been learning a lot working with our dedicated Arboretum Committee team. I really look forward to working with them further to implement the comprehensive Arboretum plan that they finished last fall after a lot of work. There's still, just finishing the plan isn't enough. A plan that sits on the shelf is no good, and they have a lot of ideas about how we can make this a livable plan that influences the tree plant pruning schedule, the planting schedule, and it's already resulted in a lot of neat benefits. My husband and I enjoy taking out our cell phones while we're walking and testing out the GPS tool that you can look at the tree and check out the name while you're walking around. So our Arboretum is a symbolic of the green space and the treescape that make the town of Garrett Park so special, and an envy of those who live in surrounding communities. And it's something worth preserving that I'm committed to. I would also like to have even more influence on emergency planning and communication in town. I've been very impressed with our town staff and how they've responded and managed communications during the coronavirus crisis. But I think we can always do better and improve on these things. So I'm going to continue to spearhead updates to our emergency plans and protocols so that we can be even more prepared for the next emergency or disaster. I would also like to work with the county to address our and the rest of the town to work on our stormwater drainage issues as quickly as possible. I agree with Kaki that it has taken a long time for us to get to a solution in the area behind Rokeby, and I'm committed to furthering that project and helping it move along. I would like to continue to facilitate communication and transparency for the remaining Safe Routes to School project. It's been great to have the sidewalks. We're already using them as a family here on Oxford, but there's still a lot of work to do. And even though I'm not the primary council member on that project, I do work a lot with Kaki and with the other members to facilitate communication. And I think it's so important that we keep those communications out in the open so that everybody can be aware of how it's coming along and what changes are being made. Finally, it's critical for the town to stay abreast of development in the surrounding area. So I would like to help with that as well. I've enjoyed serving as a council member, and I hope you will consider voting for me. Remember to mail in your ballot on May 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry Lee. Now I will move over to Andrew Fiddler. Andrew, do you want to unmute and we'll do a quick test before you start?
Sure. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you well. Okay, I'll let you know. I'll
Okay,
private
great.
message you when you have 1 minute.
Okay, thanks. Thanks everybody for joining us here, and also, as others have said, thanks to the Citizens Association for making this happen. I know it's not easy for everybody to adapt to all the things that are going on these days, especially utilizing things like this that maybe we haven't in the past. So thanks for making the effort. I'd like to give you a little bit of my background, as I'm a relative newcomer to town. My family and I moved here from North Carolina 2 summers ago. While searching for a home near DC, we were greatly impressed by the geography of this town. And since living here, we've been even more impressed by the sense of community here. In only 2 years here, we've already made some great friends and felt quite welcomed and integrated into Garrett Park already. So I'd appreciate the opportunity to give back to the community, which has already given us so much in our short time here by serving on the town council. I've served on the town's Arboretum Committee since shortly after moving here in 2018. On that committee and participating in a number of other community events, I've witnessed the passion our neighbors have to enrich our community and the dedication and the selflessness with which they apply their passion. Having lived in a few different places in the recent past, I know that type of civic-minded attitude and activity makes this a very special place, and I know I don't need to convince anyone here of that. My wife and I primarily work from home. We have a son who was in kindergarten at Garrett Park Elementary back when going to school was still a thing that people did. We have a daughter who had been in preschool in Kensington, and another daughter due to arrive tomorrow. We like to spend our free time outside, playing in the yard, going to the playgrounds in town, checking out the farmer's market, taking walks. We work here, we play here, and we're raising our kids here, so I'm deeply invested in helping keep Garrett Park the special place it is in whatever way I can now and for our future generations. A little bit more about me, as I realize many people in town don't know me. I was born and raised in Tennessee. I'm the middle brother of 2 strong-willed sisters, so I know how to listen even if I don't like it. I come from a long line of accountants, so I like quantifiable facts, and I'm skeptical of forecasts. In my spare time in a pre-COVID-19 world, I enjoyed coaching youth baseball, so I appreciate the challenge of finding opportunities for learning amid rampant chaos. I work for the Food and Drug Administration as a veterinary medical officer, and I evaluate the safety and effectiveness of stem cell therapies and gene editing in animals. These fields are rife with fast developing scientific innovation and, of course, somewhat slower developing government regulation. But I've been lucky enough to help develop, implement, and communicate some of the flexible risk-based regulatory approaches applied to these new technologies. While I have no particular political or leadership aspirations, no pet projects or personal agenda, and relatively few strongly held convictions, I am very interested in and committed to serving the community. I would aim to do that by striving to faithfully represent the best interests of our neighbors and our neighborhood. I would hope to be a strong advocate for pedestrians, families, recreation, and the environment. I have an understanding and appreciation of open-mindedness, objectivity, critical thinking, and evidence-based decision-making, and I think I can bring those qualities to the table for the benefit of the council's work. I also work well with others. I'm generally optimistic and easygoing. I think everyone tends to act with good intentions, just not always the same intentions. And I think if we work to understand each other's perspectives and priorities before challenging each other's ideas, then we can avoid conflict and achieve better outcomes. I believe this outlook and work style would help me be a productive member of the council. So I'd appreciate your consideration, and thank you very much for listening.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Now, Mario, do you want to unmute yourself and we'll just check your sound quickly?
Good evening. Good. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Alicia, and thanks to the Citizens Association and to everyone listening and watching this evening. It sort of brings me back, although when I did this, Alicia, it was in person. So this is, and you've done a much better job than I think I would have done. So congratulations to you on getting this all together. And as far as seeing it to everyone's living rooms, I feel like we're at the progressive dinner here a little bit. This is a future progressive dinner situation. So I'm not sure if I really like that so much. I'd rather be with people. Anyway, for those who don't know me, I'm Mario Grande. I live on Rokeby Avenue. It goes without saying that everyone on this call tonight loves Garrett Park. No one more or less than the other. We seriously, like to say you love Garrett Park is sort of like obvious, right? So, and I certainly wouldn't be running for this position if I didn't feel the same way. A little bit about me, for those who don't know, my family and I moved to Garrett Park in June of 2015. Almost immediately, I joined the Citizens Association, doing the same things that these folks are doing right now, doing all the fun things, 4th of July barbecue, Spooky Woods, town dinner. Some not so fun things. We had some fun, very hot button items in the day that we had some deliberations on. Moving on, I've served as president for a couple of years on that. I served for a while on the Garrett Park Pool board. Still a member of the pool. That's one of our town treasures. So I'm very grateful for that. I too, like Andrew, coached a competitive baseball team with primarily Garrett Park boys for quite a while, and that was really great. My wife Natalie is also very involved in the town. She is a co-chair of Garrett Park's own charity, Gibbs, along with another Garrett Park resident. Keep the names out of it. We also have 2 children, high school students, Garrett Park Elementary School, Tilden, and what is left of Walter Johnson these days. And so I'm not sure if I go back or not. Professionally, I work for an association management company. Won't bore you. What does that mean? My job is to manage a staff across the country of sales professionals that have to raise money for trade associations. So that's what I do every day. And I'm on videos like this all day long. So why am I running? There's a lot of reasons. I think about the future of Garrett Park. I think about the folks who've been here a lot longer than I have, and the folks like Andrew and his family and other folks who are moving in. We want Garrett Park to work. We want it to work now. We want it to work 10 years from now and 20 years from now. Our goal here is to, my hope is, as part of the town council, is to bring some how do I say this, some congeniality, some transparency, some cooperation, a lot of communication to the town council and to the team. And my goal is to think forward, not to get caught up in the hard work and a lot of debates and a lot of in the trenches discussions and debates that have taken place over the years. I look forward to some of those, but my goal is to step in, hopefully work with the fine folks who are on the town council, like Phil and Gerald, who's a current member, and others, and Dan Simons and some other folks on the town council now, and the mayor, to move forward. Okay, so basically, what am I thinking about when I think what has to be done in Garrett Park? Now, I don't have the luxury of being on the town council and have a lot of the details, but I do sit in and listen to some of the town council meetings. I think there are some intangible issues and there are some tangible issues. So the intangible, we talked about transparency, efficiency, things like WebEx and communication that some of the folks already mentioned. We need to move and progress the town technology-wise. We want to be a charming historical little town, but doesn't mean we can't have technology and the communications ability to communicate with our 1,000 residents in a way that makes sense for every person in town. Tangible issues. I think a lot of the folks touched upon them already tonight, and I absolutely agree. We have issues like the budget issue. The COVID-19 is going to throw just a monkey wrench into what I'm sure the town council and the mayor are already working on right now and into the future. So the budget, and everything's going to feed off the budget. So we talked about repairing town hall, stormwater management, infrastructure, parking issues, street repair. And I even like some of the things that the mayor brought up and the Jeremy brought up. There's so many things to tackle. The question is, how do you tackle that? And what makes the most sense to approach all that? So I'm hoping that my skills as a business professional can add an element to the town council. So basically, why now? And I'll just wrap it up from there because I like brevity. I don't like to yap on forever. So why now? For years, people asked. For years, I'm like, no, it's the wrong time. I got baseball, I got travel, I got this, I got that. But I'm always a doer, and I continue to be a doer. And now it's just the right time. I want to be part of the future of this town, the future of the town council of this town. And I think that those who know me, and I feel like I have a good handle on a great diversity of people in this town that I know, from all age groups, young families, older generations of families, my contemporaries with kids in high school, middle school. I feel like I can connect with all the multi-generational families in this town, which is so important in Garrett Park. You know, we are and I wrote in my letter, I call Garrett Park a noisy mosaic. And we are just a bunch of people who have a lot of opinions, all valid opinions. I mean, to bring them together, and somehow we got to make it work. And that's what I'm hoping to do as part of the town council. So please, like Jeremy said, get your mail-in ballot in on or before May 4th, I think. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mario. So now we're going to move on to the question and answer portion. As a reminder of how we're going to do this, there are 3 ways to submit a question. The first and preferred is by sending a direct chat to Therese Keating. So again, on your sort of dashboard view at the bottom of your screen, there is one symbol that looks like a text bubble. If you click on that, and a chat box will come up on the right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner, and it says 2. There's a part that says 2. Click on that and scroll all the way to the bottom. Therese is the last name as it's in alphabetical order. Send it directly to Therese and she will add it to the list. Or you can email her at theresekeating@aol.com. So Therese, Keating @aol.com. And then the third option, which we will do after we read a couple of questions, is only unmute those that have called in. We're going to change it a little bit, just so that for the people that are calling in who don't have chat capabilities, we can allow those people to submit questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Therese to read the first question.
Hi. Okay, we have a question from Sangeeta Call. She wants to know, is there any funding in Garrett Park for people unable to work?
So I will start the response. I'll alternate who responds first. First, I'll give that to Andrew Fiddler.
Hi, I'm sorry. I think I missed part of that. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. It's a 2-part question. I should probably read both. Sangeeta Call would like to know, number 1, is there any funding in Garrett Park for people unable to work? And 2, is there a means to provide work at home for those willing to work remotely?
Well, that's an interesting question. Thanks for the question. I honestly don't know what kind of funding or opportunities there might be to support folks in town out of work or that want to work from home. I can only imagine the headaches that future council members and the mayor and town manager will have with the budget in upcoming years, as many of us will have with our personal budgets and many businesses will have with their budgets. You know, my family has been quite lucky in this ordeal to be able to maintain our jobs. I know not everybody is in that situation, and it's going to be, you know, very difficult for our community as a whole, and as well as on a personal level for a lot of people to come out of this struggle on the other end. And I've, you know, thought about things that the town might be able to do to support folks on an individual level, as well as the town as a whole, and what few businesses we have in town. And I don't have any good answers, to be honest. I don't know if anybody does. This is obviously an unprecedented situation. The economic depression that we're going to have as a result of this pandemic is going to be something that none of us brainstorming and a lot of trial and error to figure out how to get through it. And I know that the people on the council and the mayor and others involved in town are going to be, doing a lot to try to make sure that we maintain the great community that we have. And I'd be happy to be a part of those conversations.
Thank you, Andrew. I'll turn it over to Mario next, and we're going to keep our, I should have mentioned before, but as a reminder, we're keeping our responses to 2 minutes. So I will direct chat the candidates when you have 30 seconds left. So Mario.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Yes. Wow, I technically and officially, I don't know the answer, but what I will tell you is what I love about Garrett Park. If there's one place where people are going to rally around to help their neighbors, it's Garrett Park. It's not the answer you probably want to hear. I don't know technically if there's something in our budget for something of this nature, but this town will support each other financially with means or elsewhere. That's the best answer I can give. I don't know anything beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. And Jerry Lee.
Hi. Yeah, this is a very difficult time for all of us. I don't think there is a single person in town or in this country who hasn't been touched by the coronavirus disaster. What I would recommend to the caller is to definitely call Montgomery County 311 or go online to Montgomery County 311 to look up services that the county might have. And also check the state unemployment website, because there are special unemployment resources that are available for this specific disaster that are above and beyond the usual state unemployment resources. So if you've become unemployed or if you were self-employed before this, you might be able to qualify for some sort of assistance or program at the state or county level that wasn't available before. Specifically here in the town of Garrett Park, the town itself, it has a pretty limited budget, and we don't have social services as part of our normal budget and services that we offer. But there is a several town charitable organizations. There's one called Gives that provides funding to feeding and shelter organizations. And there's another one called the Betsy White. It's part of the Garrett Park Community Fund. And people can send a letter to P.O. Box 381 here in Garrett Park and explain their situation. And there might be assistance available through that charitable group. So those would be my recommendations, is to check the state websites for unemployment and other coronavirus resources, the county websites, Montgomery County 311 services, as well as to send a letter if you are in dire need of assistance to the Betsy White Fund. That's P.O. Box 381. In terms of work, I think the 311 services might be another place to look. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry Lee. And before we turn it to Kaki, I think we're having some, can we make sure everyone's muted, just for feedback? So I think we're having some bandwidth challenges. So if folks, I hate to say it because I love seeing all of your faces, but if you're not one of the candidates, can you please turn off your video, just because I think we're struggling with some bandwidth issues and causing some audio issues. And I really hate to say it because it's so fun seeing you all. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, bye. And then I'll turn it over to Kaki. Kaki, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you.
Great.
So I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Okay. I think it was it Sangeeta Cole who made the question about the funding for people who are experiencing hardship? Is that right? This is about hardship, inability to work, or if there's a way to work uh, even remotely from home.
So Therese, will you, let's just pause for just a second. Therese, can you say the question one more time?
Repeat.
Yes. Is there any funding in Garrett Park for people unable to work? And the second part, is there a means to provide work at home, some programs for those willing to work remotely?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's tough times, and we're still trying to figure out the impact of those tough times. We know that there's a lot of people who are without work, who have lost a lot of income. We know there are people who have lost some lives. So this is really, an unusual time for all of us. I actually did ask the attorney, several weeks ago, almost a month ago, because I was so concerned about our residents, and is there any way that we can provide some assistance. Now, while we don't have anything specific right now, Sangeeta, there were some things mentioned by Jerry Lee and others that you might be able to tap into, like the Betsy White Fund. If you are experiencing a hardship, I think there's a link on the website, and you can submit your application. It's pretty brief, and you don't have to, I believe it can be anonymous, and you don't even have to provide a justification. That said, I don't really know the full rules of that fund, except that it is a nonprofit fund. So in speaking with the town attorney, we threw around some ideas, and this is something that perhaps we'll be able to have a discussion amongst the council and myself and even the town manager. What I'm about to sort of describe, and I don't want to get too down into the weeds, is that if we wanted, we could make we could do this a couple of different ways. We actually can, if we wanted to work with the 301, the 501(c)(3), I'm sorry, it's the 501(c)(3), the Betsy White, and if the council wanted to appropriate funds, we could actually make a donation with a stipulation and work this with the Betsy White organizers who manage the fund, that the request for funding would be for the benefit of all within the town. It would be a public good and the benefit for all. It gets a little more deeper than that, but that's another way. That's one way to do this. Everything is going to start with an appropriation now, and it will be council who would have to approve this use of these funds. The other way is
just a quick time check, Jackie. We're a little bit over 2 minutes now, so if you wouldn't mind just wrapping up in the next 15, 20 seconds. Thank you.
Sure. The other way is establishing a social services program as a line item in our budget, again, with a sufficient justification, and then again with council appropriating the use of the funds and in that line item. And then decide, there are ways that we could then expend those monies, but it would again be for the good of the town. So I started exploring that, and that's about as far as I got. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you off there. Okay, so then I will let the candidates know again, since we are endeavoring to make this as communicative as possible. If you have something that you'd like to, if you have a second or would want to respond in 30 seconds again to that same question, feel free to direct chat me and we can work that in. But for now, let's move on to the next question. Therese, can you read that, please?
Yes, from Allison Pierce. She would like to know, how do you see the roles of the council, the mayor, and the town manager?
With that, I will ask Jerry Lee to start us off.
I'll start because the town manager is the primary paid employee in the town. And this is a town that I think it was Mario mentioned has really changed over the last few years. And it is a little bit more complex and a little bit more sophisticated in terms of the requirements of managing the town than they maybe were in the early days. So the town manager position is critical. It's a full-time position. We pay it relatively well, given where we live. And the town manager supervises the other staff in town. They take care of all of the record keeping. They make sure that we comply with all of the regulatory requirements, all the filing requirements, and state and county requirements. So it's a critical position to administer all of the town's functions. The mayor oversees.
One second, Jerry. One second, Jerry. Jerry, I'm not sure if you can hear us. So we're gonna add this time back just so everyone knows, because I think we're having some audio issues on Jerry's part. Jerry, can you hear me? Jerry?
And so we have to work
together. So sorry, Jerry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, so we ran into a little bit of a snafu, unfortunately, Jerry, with yours. Can you hear me okay? Can you raise your hand if you can hear me, Jerry? So for the past about minute, I would say we couldn't hear your response. So I think that there might be some connectivity issue there. So let's just reset. I think you're still sputtering a bit. So maybe let's just see if your connection comes back in a second. For the time being, can we move to Kaki? Right, Kaki, you have 2 minutes, and then Jerry, we'll come back to you just because I think.
All right, I'm going to turn off my camera too.
Okay, sounds good.
Maybe that will help.
Okay, so Kaki, you have 2 minutes to answer this question. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left.
Hello, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I heard a beep beep, so I thought somebody got hung up, or I did.
I can hear you.
I pretty much follow what the structure of our government is all about. So, you know, the mayor is the chief executive officer according to the charter, and it's her job to ensure that we are doing things that are appropriate on the operational end and looking out for the best interests of the town, both in business, budget, and, you know, operationally and process, and working in concert with the town manager, who wears 2 hats. You know, she reports to me as a town manager, but she also reports to the council as a clerk treasurer, and that's in the code. And she really runs the day-to-day operational processes. And then we have the council, who, you know, by charter are vital and play a pivotal role on setting the rules, the ordinances, the laws, the charter. Well, the charter is a major piece for all residents and council. But anyway, the council works on setting the laws, the rules, the ordinances. They have oversight on many of the things that happen in town, and they most importantly appropriate the money. And that appropriating of money is a process that within itself establishes priorities of what the town should be working on. And then it's up to the town manager and I to make sure we are expending those funds correctly and legally. That's a real quick nutshell of it.
Okay, thank you, Kaki. So Jerry, let's go back to you and just see how your audio is working. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay, Jerry, so let's put,
Can you hear me?
yes, can we put 1 minute back on the clock for you to make up for that little audio snafu? You ready?
Okay.
Okay.
I think I covered the town manager pretty well, and the mayor is the presiding official. The mayor oversees the town manager and the town staff, and the mayor works with the council in terms of chairing the council meetings that occur every month. The council focuses on setting the budget for the town and overseeing that how the budget helps us to structure future plans as well. So I'm not describing this very well, but the council works together to plan out what we will try to achieve over the next year, and we structure that through the budget. And then each council person has multiple areas of responsibility that they work with the town staff and the mayor to support the administration and committees. All of us have committee assignments, and we help the committees by helping them with budget and other administrative issues.
Thank you, Jerry. I will now turn it over to Andrew. 2 minutes on the clock, and I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds.
Thank you. I don't believe I have a lot to add to what Jerry Lee and Kaki mentioned. Besides, I would just in general say that the best interest of the town is best served by a council of several community service oriented representatives on the council that then rely on the mayor and the town manager to execute the will of that council. And I think that's probably how things, can function most smoothly when everybody's got the best interest of our neighbors and our town in mind.
Thank you, Andrew. Mario.
Thank you. So I see the roles as the mayor is an effective leader. They're the leader of the town. That whoever is the mayor, in this case, Kaki, is the leader of the town, and she should, in this case, she should be the sort of steering the ship. However, it's in collaboration with the strong council, and they have to work in harmony, and they have to work to counterbalance that. Just like in the federal government and state government, no one has any more power than the other. So they have to work and they have to harmonize and make the town go forward. So strong council, effective mayor, then you have the administrator or the manager, in this case, Andrea. Her role really is, I would say, is an expert in municipal management. He's an expert in county affairs. And the more we could, as a town council and mayor, can create efficiencies, which we've discussed a few times, and I know Jerry Lee's also mentioned a few times, the stronger we make the town manager, because the better she can do her job. And that's kind of how I see the roles play out. Wait, one more thing. Us, the people. I mean, without all of us, the citizens of Garrett Park, we should make sure we have a say, and not just every 2 years, every year during election year. We have to make sure that, again, transparency, communication, get more input from not just a handful of people behind the scenes, but hopefully as much transparency, because as many people that are of legal age to vote in this town have a say in what's going on. And that should be fed to both the mayor, town council, and the, in some cases, the town manager. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mario. With that, Therese, can you please read us our next question?
This question comes from Bill Rivers. It's a question for the mayor. What specific issues are seen in the parking lot in front of Penn Place?
Kaki, can you hear us?
Started to talk, but maybe I was still muted. Am I unmuted now?
Yep. You got 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Bill, for asking that question. It's one that's been looked at for many years, and we've had, many different work groups and, ad hoc, committees looking at it, providing recommendations. And the problem really is that, it's changed over time, where it used to have a better traffic flow with, there was a median in the middle, if you might remember. I don't know if you were here during that time. But then we took the median out, and then there was Penn Place renovation, and the post office had to move out into a trailer. So, things got changed, but we never kind of got back to the parking lot that had a more, well-conceived traffic direction, traffic control, situation. So now we've got, cars coming, they're backing up and, or coming forward, and you got, 2 lanes of traffic coming through there. You got cyclists, you got runners, you got pedestrians, you got strollers. So it gets very, very harried. And even me, when I've been running a lot in this town, as a form of physical fitness, coming through that parking lot is kind of nerve-wracking. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So if there's just some, we have to look at ways where we can get a better traffic design in there, as well as ensure there's still sufficient parking, and making the non-vehicular traffic feel safe, and really basically talking about humans. So that's it.
Okay, even though that was specifically for the mayor, I will see if our council member candidates want to respond to that. So first on the list is Mario. Do you have anything to say to that question?
Not necessarily. I mean, Bill, I agree with you, and Kaki, I do agree with you. The landscape in Garrett Park's changed. We have faster cars, bigger cars, all kinds of things. So without diving into, I don't have a lot of details on this, but one thing I will say is we have to pay attention to the MARC system, because before we make any decisions on the parking lot, we have to pay attention to maybe what MARC's going to do. If they pull that train station out of Garrett Park at some point in time, that changes the dynamic of that lot as well. So there are a lot of variables, I think, that are going to come to play over the next couple of years. But in the short term, I don't have a solution without spending some time with some of our town members looking into it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Andrew, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I would just, echo what Kaki and Mario have both said, and I see that as a huge pedestrian area, and I'd like to see, pedestrian safety, biker safety, and child safety prioritized there. That's obviously a hot spot to be in town. Also serving as our gateway to our neighbors to the east and Rock Creek Park Trail. So yeah, I think it'd be great to see some improvements made in that area to prioritize pedestrian safety for sure. That's all.
Thank you, Andrew. Jerry Lee, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'll just add that I agree. There are a lot of uneven surfaces there, and there are some pedestrian safety issues there. So I would definitely put it on a list of infrastructure improvements we should consider if there's budget that allows. I would put it behind stormwater management and sidewalk improvements. Thank you.
Thank you. Therese, just to confirm, are there any other questions that have come into you via direct chat or your email?
No more questions.
Okay, so this is the part that we are going to hope that we don't have a complete audio chaotic moment, but we do want to make sure that we are opening up the people who've called in. So what we're going to do, Tommy, since he is our WebEx host, in just a second, he's going to unmute the people who've called in. So again, if you've participated via WebEx, we're not going to unmute you since you have the capabilities to chat us here, or even unmute yourself. But for those of you who've called into your phone lines, in just a second, all of you will be unmuted. If you have a question, please state your name and say that you have a question. If I hear multiple people, then I'll do my best to capture all of the names and we'll go through it in an orderly fashion. But bear with us in case there are a lot of people talking at the same time. So Tommy, with that, can you please help us unmute only those who've called in? It's going to take just a second, folks. I'll let you know when everyone's unmuted, and then we will ask folks to chime in if they have a question.
I think we're all set. I think all the callers are unmuted.
Okay. So if you have called in, if you're calling in on your telephone, you have the option now. Please state your name if you'd like to ask one of the candidates or all of the candidates a question. And folks who are joining via WebEx, please also, if you have a moment, or if you have any questions, please, your options are to direct chat Therese Keating or email her. If we don't have any questions, we'll close it up pretty soon in the next couple minutes or so. So it looks like we do have another one for Therese. All right, folks on the phone, last call here before we mute everyone again. Anyone on the phone have a question that you'd like to ask the candidates? All right, so with that, Tommy, can you mute everyone again? I'm seeing a couple of hand signals from Therese that there are a couple more questions. So we'll turn it over to Therese for the next question that she received.
This is a follow-up. It says that the last Penn Place parking lot committee was in about 2007, after the median had been removed and the restaurant had been in operation for several years. It resulted in a comprehensive report and recommendations, including necessary interaction with CSX. They own a significant portion of the area. Is there any reason not to revisit those recommendations rather than restart consideration?
Thank you, Therese. We'll start with Mario. Mario, you have 2 minutes.
No, there's no reason to. I would, if I was on the town council, I would love to look at that document. I have not seen it personally, so I can't speak to it. Why reinvent the wheel if you don't have to? And, you know, obviously 2007 is very different from 2020. But safety is safety, pedestrian safety is important, child safety, bike safety, but that's not changed. But sure, I'm certainly open to that.
Okay. Thank you. Kaki, you're next. You have 2 minutes.
Okay. If you can hear me?
We can hear
I
you.
agree with Mario. Okay, I agree with Mario. We have lots of plans, and there were several good ones. And I believe there is a traffic and parking ad hoc committee. I think it's chaired by Phil Schulp, council member Phil Schulp, and he's got a few members on there that, you know, have been talking about it, or he's going to reconvene. I think, you know, there might be a way to go with one of those. We have 17 parking lots, parking spaces that belong to CSX. That was an agreement. They also have a right of way on that side of the track, which is right on our right behind the train depot station. So they own the right of way. They have parking spaces. Our biggest challenge, really, and it's also a cost one, is the telephone poles, the utility poles. There's roughly, I think, 3 somewhere within the center, or, you know, within the area of the parking lot, and those cost roughly $30,000 to $40,000 a piece to move. So that's a sizable budget chunk. We also have to sort out who owns what. We just learned, where we thought it was CSX and Pepco, we now learned that the Mark Train may also own one of those poles. So, and where do those poles go? So there's a little bit more nuance to look into with any of these plans. I agree, we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay. Jerry.
Yeah, I'm not very familiar with that plan that was written in 2007, but I would agree with both Mario and Kaki that that should be the starting point of revisiting the needed improvements in that area. And I think we would probably still want to have a small committee look at whether the requirements have changed over time, whether some of the new pieces of knowledge we have about ownership of different things would influence it. And also our needs have changed as a community, and the White Flint development has occurred in that time period. So I do think there's some updating for sure, but we should absolutely start with that foundational work that town members have put in already. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrew. Andrew, can you hear us?
I wholeheartedly, yeah, I agree with Jerry Lee. The end.
Got it. You barely made the 2 minutes. Just kidding. That was 5 seconds. All right. So Therese, can you go with, can you tell us the next question, please?
Question for the candidates. What is your opinion about starting a community garden in the land across from the MARC station or elsewhere in town?
Andrew, we're starting with you. 2 minutes.
I think that's a fantastic idea. I've had daydreams of in the middle of the night taking a bulldozer to the abandoned house up on Kenilworth and creating a community garden there. No offense to anybody involved in that property at all. It was just, purely, subconscious fantasy. But no, I think a community garden would be really nice, especially for those of us on property that maybe doesn't get a lot of sun. I think that'd be a great idea. I don't know the best location. That would take a lot of discussion and investigation to figure out, where and how and what it would look like. But I think that'd be a great idea. I would love that.
Thank you. Mario, you're next.
Yes, I would love a community garden. I love the garden. I live in the heart of darkness down here in the end of Rokeby, across from Khaki. And so, we don't get a chance to garden very much. But yeah, I mean, it's you would think a community garden would work and it would be unanimous. And but there's always a challenge. I would, if we can find a space, whether it's across, I don't know if it's across from the parking lot, or one time someone else in town talked about carving out a piece over by the basketball courts and borrowing it from the county. I'm not saying that's what I'm advocating, just mentioning. People have mentioned down by the dog park by the pool, sensitive topic, not for tonight. So sure, I mean, there are other wonderful communities that have great gardens, community gardens. And people have actually surprised that Garrett Park doesn't have a community garden, is quite frankly as green as this community is. But if it could be worked out, sure, I'm down to support that and try to make it work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Jerry Lee?
I think as long as I get a share of the zucchini and the cucumbers, I'm all for it. But in all seriousness, I'm not that familiar with how much sun there would be at that. I think there is a small strip of unpaved town property there near the Penn Place parking lot. I'm not that familiar with how that surveys out. So I think that might be the property that's being considered here in this question. I'm certainly open to exploring it the same way that we're exploring the composting issue. I don't know yet whether I think the town should subsidize composting, but I'm certainly willing to explore it and look into the matter. Same goes for the community gardening. I think a lot of us wish we had more sun and fewer deer so that we could garden in our own yards. And it's definitely something that I think if a committee came together and did some of the research and legwork and put a proposal to the town, it would be definitely worth consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry Lee. Kaki.
I'll make sure. Okay, I'm unmuted now. Okay, thank you. I agree with everybody. I would love to see a community garden. I know it's been talked about. People have asked me what I've thought, and I've said yes. I think there's some things that definitely have to be considered. Not only about where to place it so that you got sufficient sunlight. And while I love the expression heart of darkness, I have to say, Mario, I feel like I am sitting in the sunshine on my property. So I don't feel too much in the dark there. But, you know, given that we do need a place where, you know, there's water, there's sun, what are the demands on the town? How much would the town have to be involved? Is it a community-run garden, or is it supposed to be something that the town is going to be involved in? Is it going to require town funds? I'm not really clear on all that. And then how do you sort out priorities and membership? You know, who will be able to have a little plot inside the community garden? So those are just some of the things that have come up in discussion with people that I have spoken with about it and who've asked me. So I'm all for it if we can figure something out. I don't know about putting further demand on any staff on the town to do this, or maintenance staff, though. That's all.
Great. Therese, do we have another question?
We have two more. What is the council planning to do about reducing the noise from the train signals?
Right. With that, we'll start with Jerry Lee.
Sure. We have had a recent proposal from some residents to for the town to take a more active role in negotiating reduced train whistle noise. I'm supportive of the town exploring that. Dan Simons has proposed that we hire a consultant. I think that might actually be what the citizen proposal was as well. And I know Phil has been looking into this issue, and he mentioned this week at the council meeting that he's been making some calls and looking into it. I do think that this is somewhere where the town can use its influence with some of the other larger entities like CSX, like the MARC train, like Amtrak, and try to exert that influence. I don't think it's solely the mayor's job, but I do think that this is somewhere where that presiding leadership role of the mayor can be leveraged, and you know, some calls, some letters, but also I'm not opposed to the concept of the consultant, because I think if that will get us quick results, because the mayor is really putting a lot of work and effort into overseeing the administration of the sidewalk project right now. We've all had the coronavirus disaster to deal with, which has caused some extra work for the town staff and also reduced in office work. So if we can make progress faster by hiring a consultant and it's affordable within our current budget, I would be willing to consider that option as well.
Thank you, Jerry Lee. Kaki.
Yes, this has been going on for years, hasn't it? And what I'm hearing over the last few months is that the train horn has gotten louder and more persistent. And there are some things that the citizens, some of the small group of residents have actually looked into. And I think there are some options we have to look at, which, you know, includes this designation as a quiet zone. That said, you know, I know Phil is looking into it, and there's a couple residents who are also taking charge. Dan has been given some feedback as well. So that's where it is right now.
Great. Andrew.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add. I'm glad this is a topic that's getting some traction. Yeah, I don't have anything more there. Thanks.
Thank you. Mario.
So I understand if everyone just puts aluminum siding on their houses, they won't hear the trains. No, just kidding. Look, I think what it comes down to is it's that endless debate between noise pollution, which we all hear on the side of Rokeby, and safety. And if we can find that right compromise and do it right, and if we're efficient, again, I use the word efficient a lot because that's come from my business background, and take the proper steps to explore this properly and don't short answer it. So you're not going to spin on our wheels for years and years on this. We can come up with a solution. Listen, if we can stop slow it down or stop the amount of honking on the trains, great. But it requires some investigation. But in order to do that, let's put some proper resources into it. And maybe if it's not this year, maybe it's next year. But let's put some resources behind it. And that includes money and time to investigate it the right way. So, yeah, I'm all for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Therese, do we have one more question?
One more
how many more-
question.
One more
Garrett
question.
Park-
Okay. So before you read it one second, this will be our last question unless Therese receives any other before the candidates have a chance to respond. So please do, if you have any final questions, let Therese know. Otherwise, after this question, we will close up. So sorry, Therese, for interrupting. Go ahead.
Quite all right. Okay, Garrett Park owns some property within town. Should consideration be made to permanently protect that from sale or development?
Mario, you are first on deck.
It's a great question, Therese. I believe you're referring to some of the land that was deeded forever, like forever wild, so to speak. Is that what you're referring to? I was making notes when you were speaking, so I apologize.
It isn't from me. The question was from Joanne Schmader.
Oh, Joanne. Okay, yeah, good.
Garrett Park owns some property within town. Should consideration be made to permanently protect that from sale or development?
Yeah, I mean, my gut leans towards protect, but what makes sense today in 2020 may not make sense in 2030. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to go with my gut answer on this one. And, obviously this is, I would say I would lean towards protecting that property versus selling it or allowing something else to happen to it. Thank you.
Andrew, not quite sure if you heard. I think you're on mute, actually. You're next on deck to
Oh, sorry
respond to the
about that.
question. That's okay.
Sorry about that. I think my computer may have blacked out for a second. Yeah, I agree with Mario. My first inclination would be to protect that property. I don't know the details. I know in working with the Arboretum Committee, some town-owned property that's not currently being used, such as by town hall or Pin Place or things like that, they seem to be rather odd lots, rather small, or oddly shaped, and probably not appropriate for development anyways. But yeah, I think that's a fine idea, and with looking into it, I think it's something that I would support.
Thank you, Andrew. Kaki.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me? Okay. Here. Hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. What a great question. And as everybody's mentioned, it really does depend on the set of circumstances and where we are now versus where we may be in the future. And I don't have a crystal ball for the future. We have several properties in Garrett Park that are owned by the town, and at least the Yendel property is now a trust to the town, and that is one that we're looking at actually being able to develop into a park, and that's near the end of Kenilworth, where it bumps into Rokeby. So keeping as much green space and would be great, and being able to have the gardens and just the beautiful canopy and so forth. That to me is really important. We've seen a lot of the canopy disappear either through development or just by the dying of very old trees. So preserving what we have is really great. There could be a time in the future where, depending on the location of that lot, if there's something that the town, all of us, the residents, the council, the town manager, if we think there's something viable there that might have some revenue, and I don't mean a development for townhouses, I mean if there's another building that we'd want to have for providing as a tenant to somebody and getting more revenue. And I'm just throwing something out against the wall. It's nothing I've even really thought about that way until you've asked the question. But it will depend on the time and the place and what the needs are of the town.
Thank you, Kaki. Jerry Lee.
Okay. I will admit I'm a little unclear about what specific property or properties we might be referring to. I will say that I really think that public ownership is in and of itself a form of protection. It's a natural form of protection for property here in town, because it would be very difficult for the town to sell or develop a piece of property here in town without a open public process. So I think it's a natural form of protection for the town to own property. And so I'm not terribly worried that there's any town-owned property in town that is at risk of being sold or developed in the near or even the long term. So I think this is an issue that I would be very interested in speaking with the person who posed the question and getting a little more information before I gave a more definitive answer. And I'm more than happy to do that offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry Lee. It looks like we have one more question. Therese.
Yes, it comes from the Alter family. It says, what will you do to maintain a constructive tone among your town council colleagues when there are different opinions?
Thank you, Therese. Kaki, looks like you're first on deck for this one.
Okay. It was I think half a year ago, maybe less, that I really wanted to have council and myself focus on how to have a more civil discourse. And I had provided, and I think I provided extra cards to the audience that same evening of that town council meeting, but I had provided these, laminated cards that we all took upon our person, and they were about reflection, they were about advocacy, and about inquiry, and how do you phrase the terminology in those three different kind of categories that keep the conversation civil, doesn't make it personal, doesn't put people on the defensive, and just sort of helps to broaden understanding and maybe even, a more agreeable outcome. So that to me is one way to make something, to make conversation among all of us in the town council more constructive and civil. But definitely it's about practicing. We have to practice these ways of of asking questions or stating things that don't put people on the defensive, like, this is what I'm thinking about, or, what's really going on here, or tell us what's behind that, that statement, or can you say more about it? Those are the ways that we try to get a more open and collegial conversation going. And it is to the betterment of all of us personally, and I think as a community, to be able to talk in ways like that.
Sorry, Kaki, you're at 2 minutes, so if you could wrap
okay.
it up just a little bit.
All right.
We're at 2 minutes.
Right. Show more understanding and tolerance, and not to take things too defensively or personally. That's all.
Jerry Lee?
Yeah, I think this is sort of like real estate. It's about communication, communication, and communication. It's an area where we can all improve, no matter who we are, no matter where we've been. And it's something I work on all the time, both in my town council role, in my volunteer jobs, and in my work job. It's very easy when you care a lot, and all of us care a lot about Garrett Park and about the various projects that we're championing, and the things that we'd like to see to improve the town or to keep as nice as they already are. So when people care so much, sometimes they get passionate, and that passion spills over into the conversation. And so I do think that keeping communication lines open is the best way to reduce those tensions. When I'm frustrated about something, usually it means I need more information. And so I've been making an effort to call other people, send an email, and as Kaki said, get more information so that I understand their perspective better and understand the situation better. I think we can always look for shared objectives and common ground with other people so that we can have a good starting point and build upon there. And we have to meet other people where they are in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry Lee. Mario.
Thank you. And I totally agree with Jerry Lee. Politics, whether it's on the federal level, state level, Garrett Park level, is about the people. It's always about the people. So it's about honesty, and it's about how you want to be treated. I don't want anyone yelling at me, so I'm not going to yell at anyone else. So treat me the way I treat you, and vice versa. It's about coming to the middle. I mentioned it in my opening statement. It's about compromise and transparency, and it's about communication and cooperation. And quite frankly, it's about compromise. That's what it comes down to. So my hope is that my life experience and the way I treat people in my life will hopefully translate on the town council. I know that can be contentious, but the goal is not to screaming and yelling does not make my answer or my decision any better than your decision. It does not. I can yell louder than anybody, and I can stomp my feet harder than anybody. Doesn't make me right. No, it doesn't make anyone else right. So my hope is that civility and compromise will win the day on the town council moving forward. So thank you.
Andrew. 2 minutes.
Yeah, I've loved what I've heard from everyone else, and some great thoughts there for sure. When I hear opinions that may differ from my own, I generally come from a place of curiosity. I like to ask the curious questions and try to understand people's perspectives and priorities that may be different from my own. And I think that really helps inform a useful and friendly discussion as opposed to a contentious one. My highest rated qualities at work are always collegiality and teamwork, and I take a lot of pride in that. I tend to get along pretty well with folks that others may find it difficult to get along with. I think a lot of that comes from being trained as a scientist. I generally assume that what I think I know is true is most likely not true. I like to hear what other people have to say, and I don't take it personally when others criticize me or my ideas. I just want the best ideas to rise to the forefront, and I think if myself and others come with good intentions to have an open and honest conversation, then that's what will happen.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. And just to confirm, Therese, we have no more questions, correct? Seeing it. No more questions. And guess what? We literally ended right at 9:01, 1 minute late. But with that, I do want to sincerely thank all of the candidates for joining today and being part of this candidates forum. And I want to thank all of the audience members for participating. We had about 50 participants, and I've got to say, you guys were so professional and really helped make this run smoothly by kind of using the ground rules that we set forward. So I want to send big thanks to everyone who participated, and thank you so much to my CA teammates for helping run this forum. With that, have a wonderful evening, everyone. Stay safe and have a great night. Bye.